All right, today we're cracking open the story of one of the most complicated, terrifying, and honestly just coolest figures in all of comics, Venom. So let's just get right to it. The big question. What is Venom? Is it a monster? A living costume? A hero? Well, the answer is yes. It's kind of all of those things. And that right there is the secret to why this character has stuck around and why we all find it so fascinating. Okay, so before we get to the giant teeth and that crazy tongue, we gotta understand what this thing is at its core. The Venom symbiote comes from an alien race called the Clintar. And you gotta think of it as a living, thinking creature, a liquid life form that needs to bond with another living thing to survive. But it's not a one-way street. In return for a home, it gives its host some seriously incredible powers. It's this weird mix of a parasite and a partner. And that's why this isn't just a story about a bad guy. This is the story of the symbiote itself. This spurned alien kinda looking for its other half, its perfect match. It's a journey about finding connection, but also about what happens when that connection is violently broken.
And that whole story really kicks off with its very first human host. So let's dive into Chapter 1, the moment this living being was treated like it was nothing more than a cool new suit.
So picture this. It all goes down during this huge cosmic crossover event called Secret Wars. Spider-Man's suit gets torn to shreds, and he finds this machine he thinks just makes new clothes. Out comes this amazing new black costume. It looks awesome, it's stronger, it even makes its own webbing. But when he gets back to Earth, he starts realizing something is very, very wrong. This suit is alive, and it wants to merge with him for good. Freaked out, he runs to a church and uses the deafening sound of the bells to literally tear the symbiote off of himself. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When the symbiote left, it didn't leave empty-handed. It basically made a copy of all of Spider-Man's powers, his strength, his web slinging, all of it. But crucially, it also learned how his spider sense works, which meant it knew how to hide from it. This instantly made the symbiote the one thing that could truly get the drop on him. And you have to understand, this is the real heart of the story. For the symbiote, this wasn't just a business arrangement. It had formed a real emotional bond with Peter Parker. So getting ripped off like that, it wasn't just a physical separation. It was a deep, painful betrayal. And that feeling of being rejected, of being scorned, well, that's what created the rage that would define Venom for years. So, feeling alone and betrayed, the symbiote went looking for someone else. Someone who hated Spider-Man just as much as it now did. And this, my friends, is where we get the classic, iconic villain we all know and love. Enter Eddie Brock. He was a journalist whose career went up in flames because he named the wrong guy as a serial killer. Of course, Spider-Man caught the real killer, and in the process, made Eddie look like a fool and ruined his life. Absolutely consumed by hatred, Eddie goes to a church to pray for forgiveness. And yup, you guessed it. It's the exact same church where the heartbroken symbiote was hiding in the rafters. It was a match made in hell. The symbiote felt Eddie's incredible rage, this blinding hatred for Spider-Man, and it recognized its own pain. One felt betrayed by his partner, the other felt betrayed by the hero who destroyed his life. And when they came together, their shared fury fused them into something totally new, something terrifying, Venom. And as comics historian Mike Conroy said, what was once just a costume became Spidey's greatest nightmare. I mean, think about it. This new being had all of his powers, knew all of his secrets, and was completely invisible to his one big advantage, the spider sense. It was a true dark reflection of the hero. But, you know, the story doesn't just stop with Eddie Brock, not by a long shot. Over the decades, the symbiote has had a whole bunch of different hosts, and each time, its identity has changed in some really fascinating ways. You see, the personality of the host completely changes what Venom becomes. With Eddie Brock, it was all about revenge. But then, when it bonded with Gargan, the villain known as the Scorpion, it turned into this out-of-control cannibalistic monster. But then, in one of the wildest turns in comics, it bonded with Flash Thompson, Peter Parker's old high school bully, who was then a war hero. He became Agent Venom, using the symbiote's power for good. So Venom's identity isn't just one thing. It's had this incredible moral evolution. It started as a classic villain. Then it devolved into this pure, hungry monster, and then it actually evolved again into a complex anti-hero. It's this constant change that keeps the character so fresh and compelling after all these years.
And this whole journey, from villain to anti-hero and everything in between, has really cemented Venom's place as a true cultural icon, way beyond just the comic book page.
And if you need proof of that impact, well, IGN ranked Venom as the 22nd greatest comic book villain of all time, which is just incredible when you realize the whole idea for the character came from a fan, an idea that Marvel bought from him for just $220. Talk about a good investment. And the symbiote's influence has just spread everywhere. In the comics, it's created a whole family of other symbiotes, like the completely unhinged Carnage. It's the star of its own massive blockbuster movie franchise, and it's been a huge player in some of the biggest video games out there. Venom isn't just a character anymore, it's a phenomenon.
Which really brings us full circle, back to that first question. Monster, costume, hero? Venom has been all of those and more. Its identity is constantly shifting, defined by whoever it bonds with. So the real question isn't what Venom is. It's who will Venom become next? And what terrifying, or maybe even heroic, new form will that bond create?